Some progressives who say they favor defunding the police have paved the way to the passage of a $1.9 billion spending bill for Capitol Police that would intensify security at the U.S. Capitol. AOC Jamal Bowman and Rashida Tlaib all voted present, enabling that bill to pass.
So, Democratic strategist, council member at large Montgomery County, Will Jawando, and White House reporter for Real Clear Politics, Philip Wegman, they join us now to discuss. Will, I want to start with you. This is an interesting thing. After the movement over the summer and more. And then whenever it comes to increasing billions of dollars of funding for the Capitol Police, there's actually no evidence that they need those billions of dollars in order to do what was a very basic task of maybe listening to some intelligence, having 100 more officers. The entire day looks completely differently. Crystal and I have observed a huge grab by the national security state and other actors in order to try and get more money out of the Capitol. So what did you make then of the push in order to give many people who completely failed on that day just even more resources whenever they couldn't even use the resources they had at their disposal then?
Right. Well, I think in this case, reform needed to become before all this money. You could argue that it was majority strategy. It was the fact that they didn't have intelligence. It was the fact that they were told that they weren't going to need, and leadership made decisions not to have the full kind of protest riot gear on. There's a lot of decisions that were made.
Exactly.
Whether they needed $2 billion to totally revamp the system, I think the answer is probably not. But you could argue there might be some enhancements that need to be made. But I just think the way they tried to rush this through, to me, that would seem to be, you would make some immediate kind of security increases, which they've done, have a commission, have some sort of study, and then come back and see what you need. Right. I agree it was a grab. But I also say that, look, these are tough issues. If you're talking about communities of color, this is a different case. This is the seat of our government. You need to protect it. But the kind of difficult and marred relationship that police have in communities of color in particular, where you have violence because of lack of investment and the like, but you want to be safe, but you don't want to be targeted. And I think you're seeing some of that play out in this debate as well.
Yeah. And Phil, so the dynamics here is you had a sort of like 50-50 split in the squad. You had Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley all voting no on the measure. AOC Jamal Bowman and Rashida Tlaib all voting present. It passed by one vote, 213 to 212. So if the squad all votes in a block together on this, it goes down. And so that's why we're talking about them. I don't want to feel like people are like unfairly targeting them. But this is a perfect example of they had the power, acting as just the six of them, to change the outcome of this bill. And, in my opinion, it's kind of a cowardly move to just vote present. Rather than, look, if you support it, vote yes. If you don't support it, vote no and take the thing down.
And I think this shows that the squad doesn't have the stomach to block House Speaker Pelosi. Look, there are all sorts of parallels between the Freedom Caucus and the squad. They're both sort of insurgents. They're pushing leadership in the direction that they want them to go. But if you look at the House Freedom Caucus, they moved to vacate the chair. They got rid of John Boehner. They made Paul Ryan's life hell. What we see with the squad is they weren't able to affect this legislation. Instead, they sort of just gave this little shot across the bow, signaling that maybe if they weren't so afraid, they could have sunk things. And what is Nancy Pelosi saying? Okay, thanks. All right. Yeah. This shows that I can do what I want. And you know what? Your little protest vote, if you want to come to the House floor and not say yes or no, but just be present, I'm going to govern without you. You're not going to change my paradigm.
What do you make of that from that perspective, Will? Which is that, look, they knew the whip count. They voted present for a reason. There was, I've seen this game play out many a time. Don't want to vote for it. Vote present. Maybe don't show up that day in order to make sure that it all happens. This reeks of Pelosi and the whip's office saying, look, if you want to have your little show, that's fine. 3 of you want to vote no. Okay, but this thing is going to pass. And if you hold it up, it's going to be a big problem for you.
Oh, that's absolutely what happened. I used to work for Ms. Pelosi. I worked, and she's a master at this. I worked in the House and the Senate. That's exactly what happened. Look, I serve on a legislative body where there's 9 of us. You can't do that. You don't show up and you don't vote. Someone knows. And I'm involved, as you all know. I've been on this show talking about the work of police reform. And I think we need to shrink the role of what our police are asked to do, get them out of mental health, get them out of schools. But I also believe that we need to fund first-year officers more and have higher expectations. So this is a complicated issue that I would have liked to see them step up and say, okay, you want to pass this? How are these Capitol Police officers, many of whom enabled some of the rioters, what are we doing to make sure we weed them out? What are we doing to train properly? What are we doing to minimize the role and the function of police in other areas? Try to get something out of it. They kind of they hid behind this mental health for supports for officers, which is absolutely necessary. But I think this was contrived and it was a missed opportunity to take a stand where you stand on the issue, realizing it's a tough set of issues.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the national security state always does. They use their own failures to justify increased money and increased power. This is a perfect example of that, and it really is a shame that these three members of the squad decided to go along with what the national security state wanted in this instance, going against their own principles here and apparently changing their vote to support what Pelosi wanted.
Yeah.
Guys, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thanks, gents. See you later.
Thanks.
Coming up, friend of the show, Zed Jelani is with us. Rising returns.